Hello, everyone. Welcome to the debut episode of The Experience Land, a show where we dig deep into the real, raw, and extraordinary stories of ordinary people. I am your host, Saurabh Sharma, and incredibly excited to introduce our guest, John McCann, who also refers himself as the Gay Bostonian. He is a talented writer and an amazing photographer. In the beginning of 2023, John introduced his website where he publishes monthly stories about his life and the experience of growing up in Boston, Massachusetts. If you enjoy reading real stories, I would highly recommend you to go online and check his website. The link is added in the description box. Today, in this inaugural episode, we will explore John's journey and his passion towards photography, food, travel, and aviation. So let's welcome John to the Experience Land and dive into his extraordinary story. Welcome, John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing really great. Thanks for asking. And thanks for coming in to Hull all over from Boston. Now, before we proceed, let me quickly educate our audience about Hull, where this podcast is being recorded, because I'm sure not many people would be aware that there are total 14 places around the world named Hull, and 11 of them exist within America itself, with one of each in Norway, Canada, and the United Kingdom. And the Hull, where we are right now, it is the 11th smallest town in Massachusetts, which was first settled in America in the 16th century. All right, John, as you're aware about the theme of this podcast, where we share the extraordinary stories of ordinary people, let's begin with your interest of coming to the podcast today.
Sure. I really like how you capture Hull on your Instagram feed. And when we talked and I found out that you were doing a podcast, you reached out to me. I thought it'd be really exciting to just come and check it out. I've lived on the South Shore most of my life in Massachusetts, and I was born and raised here. So having, a place like this is really special because if you don't want to go to the Cape or you don't feel like going to, the North Shore, the beaches out there, it's really just a cool place. You can come and be by the water. It's really nice. And I've really been lucky because I don't have a lot of people, I've met a lot of people who don't live by the water. They say, wow, it's really lucky that you live in a coastal area. And I really realized that, there's a lot of people who don't live, in an area where the water is right there. So I'm pretty lucky. But Hull's total vibe. It's really cool. It's a really nice place. So.
Thanks again, for sharing all that information with the audience. But I would also like to share the platform why I'm starting this podcast, because this is more about for the ordinary people. When we hear about the podcast, the first thing comes in mind that which celebrity is coming to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
This is more of a platform for the ordinary people to make the extraordinary out of them and appreciate what they are doing on a daily basis.
That's awesome. For me, over the past, I'd say 2.5 years or so, I've really been driven more so than I have before. I've always kind of felt that it's really important to find what's extraordinary about the ordinary as well, but I've really been driven to just take somebody and promote them or show them to other people and say, this is just a person living in Massachusetts, but this is what makes them special. This is what their viewpoints are and what they bring to the table. And I love doing things like that because you get to really see that Massachusetts is very special. In general, it's a very special place to live. There's a lot of unique people here, but I really felt that there wasn't an avenue, there wasn't really a place for people to come and express themselves or as much, or give them a voice is really what I should say instead of express themselves. People who are really unique and cool and interesting, but they might not come and do say something themselves. I'm giving them that voice, and I'm also giving my voice too. This is who I am. This is what I feel, and I'm really happy to do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
There is one word that I'm hearing in the conversation again and again is the word special.
Yeah.
And this is something that I have also seen in your writing when I was going through your story, and you mentioned that birthday is very special to you, and you always love to make the big deal out of that.
Yes.
So what's the story behind that?
Sure. So I don't think that enough people recognize or value their birthdays, and I think that it's part of honestly my creativity. I I miss being, like in my 20s, but I really like each year that I get older. And as I get older, I think that, each year becomes more precious and more special.
Mhm.
And for me, I feel like it's something that should be celebrated. Now, there are some years where I will still have like a big party, or I'll have like a party that's big, but it's with a few group of people, just a couple of people around, and I really like that. But I like celebrating it. I think it's part of like my creativity and my art, and just celebrating people. And I really am. I think the main thing that everyone can connect on, even people who are like, oh, it's really not a big deal about my birthday. I really am not. I really don't care if we have a big celebration or we celebrate something, big. But the biggest thing I think that people can, agree upon is it's a celebration of, continuing on, your life continuing on after that year. You made it another year in life, which I think some people, that's, is really an accomplishment to them. Things happen to you in your life, and, sometimes you get news that you might not, your life might not
Yep.
continue after a few months, and to just continue to make that milestone. I really think that it's important. I like having celebrations and celebrating with people. And as an extrovert, I think that that is something that is really important to me. So that's the best way I can answer it. It's really a celebration of, what's happened and what's to come.
That's a great value you are adding to the world by spreading positivity, and it's basically makes you feel proud of not losing any moment. It's like celebration is something that you do not need a particular occasion or a day. It's like when you're happy, you
Right.
should celebrate that.
That's right. You should. And there are many things in life. There are many wins that you can celebrate. It doesn't just have to be a birthday. It can really be anything that, you feel you've accomplished that you should celebrate. But I just, I mean, on a joking side or whatever, I mean, I really like frosting. So I really love sweet. Like, I really look forward to having cake. But I really value the fact that I have another year behind me, and to reflect on the difference that I've made. I think that's another thing too that's important to me, is reflection, like reflecting on what I've done and what I've created. So it's really cool. But yeah, I'm glad that you picked up on that. Birthdays are a huge deal to me.
Thank you for sharing the
Sure.
story. The other thing that I want to talk about, and just so the audience knows that here, whatever that I'm going to talk about is everything that I've picked up from his story, and that's where I would also going to recommend you guys. Not only the story is about John, who John is, it is about a person who is okay to be ordinary, and that is the extraordinary talent that he brings to the world with his stories of sharing these stories about the Boston, the evolution taking place, his passion about the aviation, and so that's what something that we will be talking more about on the podcast. So it sounds very exciting, and I think that you have a lot more to talk about your childhood, and this is what something that I've also seen in your books. Talk more about your childhood. What is the last memory that you have that you still are living with, or still think that maybe a change could have happened better, or you're okay with what had happened in the childhood?
Yeah, I grew up in a really nice town on the South Shore, and my family is middle class, and they are, my parents were great. Like where I lived, I felt like, for me, I felt very safe, and it was a good neighborhood. I kind of say, from my childhood, I remember, you know, I think the one thing that sticks out, because it's a smaller building now and it's been renovated. But when I went to elementary school, it's this place called McElwain,
Hmm.
which is in Bridgewater, and it was a really cool experience. But you could fit the entire town that I grew up in that one school for elementary school. It was like first through fourth grade. Now you can't even do that. The town has grown so much, and what they actually did is they converted that school into apartments now, and they did
Wow.
that because they moved around. Like there are many buildings
Yep.
in in the town in Bridgewater, so they had plenty of space, and if they need something, they just build it.
Yep.
It's like one of those towns. So
Did
uh,
that emotionally impact you when you see your school being demolished and the apartment is being created?
I think it shows me how much the times have changed and how much the town itself has changed. So emotionally, I thought it was charming and it made sense because I remembered the square footage of the building alone. I mean, it was really different. You see schools now and K through 8, and the classrooms are nice, but they're all like typically like smaller, and the classrooms are smaller. These were like big open areas. So I don't know if the place was. I don't think the place was ever apartments before, but for something that is you know that has been converted like that. I'm not sure if it was anything else previously, but it makes sense to me. It would be competent to turn it into apartments. It would probably be very easy to do, and I'm thinking about the infrastructure too. There's already an elevator in there, so it definitely makes sense to me. But yeah, it's just something that I remember. There really isn't any other, like, I'd say probably building or educational institution that I had going through high school that really impacted me. But that my time there was really special. In like the elementary school, it was really cool. So yeah, I appreciate you asking that. I would say that it's a little sentimental when I go back and I look, and you look at the building and then you think, oh, like that's where I was on the playground, or that's where I had recess, or on the third floor that was like my third grade teacher was Mr. Mitchell, I believe.
I mean, that exactly is the time wherein there are no rules. You make your own rules. You basically do whatever you feel like. And yes, everyone is born with some or the other talent and a passion, but that is the time when are learning from each other, not in the race of beating each other or being able to reach at a goal which will make you different from one to the other. It's more of the platform of being equal and happily living your life.
Yeah, sure, and I believe that. I also believe that equality doesn't always come easily, or it doesn't come, I guess we'll say, free. There's a lot of communication and discussions that you have to have to get to a place of equality. And I think that that's something that as I've gotten older, I kind of see. But yeah, I didn't really feel like when I was in elementary school or during that time there that there was massive competition. It was a definitely different time, and it was quite a while ago. So, but it was I did feel free, like you say that, and I keep hearing you say that. I definitely felt more free. Yeah, I did. I feel free today. But between then and now, whatever, I'd say that was probably the time in my childhood when I felt most free. Yeah.
There is one more thing that comes with the childhood is the innocence. And as we grow, I mean, not intentionally, but somehow we lose that innocence and try to be a part of either a particular community or a part of group. That if we need to be recognized, then we have to be like someone. That's basically the race that usually people get stuck when they grow, or when they get the pressure from the family that you need to get good marks in the school, or maybe you need to get the best job. That is basically becomes your identity, that what achievements you have in your life.
And I don't feel like that. I feel like that being the best person that you can be is based upon what you bring to the table with both your personality and your message, and that has to be defined by you. That can't be defined really by anyone else.
True.
You can feel what you feel, but it has to be something that you share with others, share with the world. So that's why I just I feel like I'm kind of in a place like where I'm like, I'm gonna do something this way. You can do it whatever way you want to do it, but this is how I'm gonna do it, and this is what I'm gonna create. But one thing that I like and that I've gotten a lot of feedback on is a lot of the projects that I do, whether it's my website or my We're Not Really Strangers project. It's something where a lot of people come to me and like, I don't know anyone else who's doing this, and I did. I created some original ideas of what I wanted to do, and it's just as a hobby. And the main theme that I kind of bring home is that it's bottom line, it's photography, which is but one of my biggest passions. But my biggest passion is human connection. So.
And that's what is also very much visible in your pictures that you've been uploading on the social media, be it on Instagram or even on your website. And you never ever forget to give the credit to the people, neither the one like, yeah, the pictures that you have taken definitely owned by you, but even the random pictures that you are able to upload on your website, you never forget to give a credit or to recognize people's work
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that that's really important too. And it's part of featuring that person. It's really cool. It's kind of funny because I kind of miss it, and I do not take it for granted. But sometimes you just come along an Instagram page, and the person has like maybe 200 followers, and they're just posting like photos from their phone, and it's wonderful. And I'm so into the photography and what I'm creating that I really want to create a story. But I'm almost like, I won't say envious, but I'm very like aware and like respectful of a page where you just have someone who's just posting, something maybe not even real. It's just like photos of like their kids or like they went to a party, and stuff like that is awesome too.
And you appreciate, I mean,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
appreciate without, like, even if you don't know someone, you, like, for example, with the Hull, Massachusetts page or the Experience Land page. I mean, I personally, was amazed because I didn't know anyone in America when I came in here. I moved here this year itself, and I know that 400 plus count is not that big of a count, but having, being a part in a community where you don't know, anyone in person, and 400 people are connecting with you, it basically shows you that that when it comes to the human connect, there is no limit and there is no count to the quality.
That's right. No, I mean there isn't, and I always welcome people, and I like to have people that I meet online and connect with. It is actually kind of nice. It really, online is really the place I would say where I make new friendships, and I find people with similar interests, and not just social media, but there are other avenues and like things you can do like online or whatever. Like I guess like an example, something like Bumble for friends or whatever. I've used that before. It's pretty cool. It's helpful. You can meet really cool people on there, but it gives you kind of a snapshot of what they like and what you like. Because I will say this about that and what you're talking about. It's easy to go online and just find something who has like a couple of common interests, but when you have a discussion with them and you really see what they're passionate about, you can see and kind of get a feel like, oh, is this a good connection for a friend? Is this a good connection for someone that I could work with as well? And it's really cool for me. I've been really lucky, and sometimes you reach out to someone and they're like, I love your work, but I'm not as excited about either being featured or being, photographed, have, my photo on your page, but I really like what you do. And those people are great as well. But it's really nice whenever you make friends, here. And even if I make a friend and I'm the one who's suggesting what we do because I've lived here for so long, and I'm like, let's go here and check something out or do photography. It's really nice.
I think that's what the true friendship, or I would say the true connection, is all about, when there are no expectations.
Yep.
Rather, you have the acceptance of who the person you are or who the person is.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I have friends like that. I have friends that are part of larger friend groups, and they have other people that they hang out with, but when we hang out, it's typically just myself and then my husband Steve, and usually along for it too. So we'll just go and hang out, and we'll do either photography or we'll go out to eat, or it's really nice having those types of friendships where you get to know somebody, and those ones are the ones that mean the most to me. I can hang out in any group of people, and I like that, but I really like getting to know somebody and what makes them tick, because it's kind of more for me like the why. Like if I find out why somebody ticks a certain way, or what drives them, what makes them passionate, if it's something that I typically wouldn't be passionate about or I'm unfamiliar with, I like to try and learn why and why that is. And I have introverted friends, and I try to understand what drives them to be introverted. And it's like a great learning lesson to have friends who are like, I either need a break or I need to, take a break, and they need like that downtime. And I do too, but I need a lot less downtime, I think, sometimes than other people that I've met in my life, and I totally respect it, but I don't need a lot of downtime. I'm really like, I'm always on the go. I'm always thinking, like, what's next? What can I create? What can I connect with to share my next story? Because the truth really is that if you're going to share a story, you have to work towards it. Like there has to be something there, and there has to be, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you have to get your
Me hold it right there and then. because we did talk a bit about your beginnings, which is about how your birthdays are special to you, then your school days. Let's talk about the middle part, is your college days, or maybe when you were getting out of the school, like how was that journey?
The journey wasn't long. I went for just under a year of community college, and I've
Mhm.
actually, I've honestly worked for most of my life. So
Wow.
I went to Quincy College, and I did that for just under a year, and I did computer science, and it was really cool. But I didn't graduate. I've always worked. I've worked, as an analyst, and I do reimbursement. So I kind of have had jobs where it's more skills based, and that's what I personally prefer. But I have mother who's an educator, and my sister's an educator
Wow.
too. So yeah, like master's degrees. So it's like
Was there always an expectation out of you, because being a teacher, at least what I have experienced in the family is that a teacher's family is known to kind of follow what the forefathers, mother and parents, are, if they're in the teaching profession. So is that somewhat kind of, you had any expectations whether to be always, great?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people have actually asked me that in my life. So honestly, no. Uh, I think my mother probably would have liked to have seen me like finish a 4-year degree, but I was already beginning to work at the time, and I was working in. So what I try to tell people is that if you do not feel like you need to go to school, or you do not want to complete college, that's okay as long as you have something that drives you and makes you passionate. I'd say that there are two things that are going for me. Number one, when I went to college, it was still a business, but it wasn't the business that it is nowadays. It's big, and I think that there's a lot more influence on going to that college, having that 4-year experience, or going to a trade school and having that like even like a 2-year experience, 3-year experience of learning a skill and going on. But I've always, it's basically like my background is operations, and the truth is that if you have the ability, the adaptability to learn, and you are, communicative and you're confident, you don't necessarily need that degree. And that's my situation. I just always been extremely lucky that I've been able to do, operation style work, and be successful at it. But I do remember there was this like psychology course that I took, and one thing that I remember about college, I say a happy memory that I have for the couple of classes that I took, is that I would end up being in a classroom of maybe 7 to 9 people, because again this was, it was just a much smaller influence. It was all in the school. There was no online school, no online courses, and the teachers, you know, I wouldn't know them as well, but as the class went on and I showed my personality, we it was very on a very small level, but we bonded a little bit. I think that we were kind of all like a little bit uncomfortable with each other, but then when we really talked and we shared our viewpoints on behavioral issues, we kind of bonded, and I really liked that. I thought that it was nice, but when I really look back at what I went to and what I do now as a profession, I I don't think that it was necessary.
Behavior is a very unique word that you are using, that is basically our day-to-day activity, but at the same point in time, how do you define it, uh, when it comes to accepting or on the receiving hand? Like, how do you see that a behavior can make a huge difference?
A behavior of accepting, or what else did you say?
Receiving,
Receiving.
like for example, if I say that you did not like a person's behavior,
Mm-hmm.
but you do not want to make a big scene out of it,
Yep.
and most of the time people tend to ignore.
Yep.
Do you see that that is a time when someone needs to kind of take a stand, or stand for themselves?
If a person is being attacked, then yes, absolutely. If they feel that it's incorrect or untrue, then they absolutely should take a stand. But as far as acceptance and behavior, the biggest thing I'll go back to is communication for me. So the best way to behave is to try your best to either be empathetic or try your best to be someone who can try to understand where that person is coming from. But yeah, I think a lot of people in Massachusetts, take a stand and don't put up with a lot of crap. I think that there's two types of people. There are people who don't take a lot of crap and they'll stand up for themselves, or they will do that and they will ignore. And believe it or not, and I've learned this through life, it's good to speak up, but sometimes it's good to just walk away. I definitely think one big factor and something I really want to share with you, through being with my husband now for all the years that we've been together, he's kind of shown me there are things in your life that are constants that you know that you should be grateful for and that you have in front of you, and sometimes you're always worried about like what else is going to happen or what else is coming, and you don't always have to worry about that. Like that, you just have to look at what's in front of you and what matters. So even though it could be difficult that somebody, you know, doesn't care about you, or a friendship didn't work out or something, those things are bummers. But if you really look at the unconditional things that you have in your life, the things that are always going to love you, that are always going to support you, that is really, I guess you should say, that is what you should be pulled to. That is what you should, focus on. So that's my viewpoint. I don't necessarily say that it has to be everyone's viewpoint, but I realize I have a lot less anxiety when I take a step back and I just really look at all of the good things that I have in my life, and I'm lucky to have them. But a lot of people don't take that step back and just look, and if you just look, you see.
I mean, the two words that you used by elaborating that whole experience is the communication and empathy.
Yep.
I think that these are the very important key roles that plays in behaving, and on a part how you were talking about making difference is what something that I find is very important.
But see, making a difference has more than one definition, and especially here and in New England, it's important to be kind and it's important to be respectful. But people here are also very blunt and they're very direct, and that's part of what makes this area of the country what it is. So I think that it's important to be understanding, but I also don't look down upon, or I don't fault anyone for being direct too, because this is an area of the United States where you can just be direct and it's natural. So, but you're right. It is really important, but I think that it's all important. I think that of anywhere else that I could live in the United States, being here is where I belong, and it just makes so much sense. That I grew up here and that I have the mindset that I do. I'm very grateful that I've had the experiences.
So you did showcase a little bit of light towards this part of the world in the United States than the other part. What other parts in the U.S. have you been, and how do you see this part being completely different?
Sure. Let's see. Where have I been? My goodness. When I was a kid, I haven't been for a while, and I don't see myself returning anytime soon, but I went to Florida as a kid a lot.
Nice.
What's different about Florida from here? It's a swamp. It's very humid. No, it's cool. It's very humid, and it is somewhere that, it's really hot all the time, and it's different from here, I'd say. But the beaches there are amazing and are beautiful. We have cool beaches here too, but the beaches there are awesome. And then a while back, like maybe it was like 15, 20 years ago, but I've been to Louisiana, and that's another cool place. Like, what is it? New Orleans, and that was a really cool place to like go and visit and check out. And that place is really humid too, but it has a lot of beautiful buildings, great photography there, a lot of like cathedrals. Where else have I been? The United States, Illinois, which is kind of like a smaller version of New York City.
Really?
Yeah. Have you ever been to Chicago?
I have not, but that's where I'm planning on my trip to Canada.
Cool.
So hopefully.
We're going to talk about Canada in a minute. We'll get to the United States.
There's more coming.
Oh,
there's
yeah,
more coming.
It's a list. It's really, you'll see it. It's like a smaller New York City. It's very clean. The people there are cool. When I go there,
Hang on a second. You said that it's very, very close to the New York, like from the cleaning perspective, because that's what one thing that New York has a different reputation.
It's like a mini New York. It has a lot of like the features, like both like interactive museums, parks, stuff like that. So it's on part of it's on a grid, so as you're walking through it, it kind of feels familiar.
So from a tourism perspective.
From a tourism perspective, exactly. And I should have said that too, but no, it is way cleaner than New York. So, and then as we move further down the map, I've been to California a couple of times. That's probably my favorite state. And if I didn't live here, I'd live in California.
Wow.
San Francisco. The Bay Area is beautiful, great for film photography. And the Los Angeles is pretty cool. I have a friend who's about to actually move there, and I'm excited for him. I guess he's going to live in like the Koreatown neighborhood. It looks really nice. Where else have I been down there? Big Sur, which is in between. So I do trips typically when I go to California, where I land in San Francisco, and you go down the coast to Los Angeles, and I love doing that.
So how are you making all these trips? Like, would you prefer flying or by?
Oh yeah. So hands down flying. Yeah. My husband Steve prefers to fly. It's a 5-hour flight. I love being up in the sky. I was thinking about maybe doing a road trip once, but we're both kind of not wild in fairness of us sitting in a car for hours and hours and hours at a time. And that's, you're talking obviously days. We're not talking hours. We're talking days.
My longest one was from here to North Carolina, and
Yeah.
I think I also went to Alpharetta, Georgia.
Yeah.
So that was it was in the very early days when I came to the US, and just hopping in the car, and I'm like, is that really doable? It did happen, but it basically helped me out with the driving skills here in the US.
Yeah, it is definitely doable. North Carolina, a lot of people here, and it makes sense to me. If you get in a plane and you want to go to New York City or DC, you can be there within an hour. It's an hour flight. So this is a great location if you want to go to some of the main hubs. But if you drive to Delaware, DC, you can leave at 7 in the morning here, 6, 7 in the morning, and get there
To be honest with you, we left around 2 in the morning.
Okay.
And that's where I was thinking that. Hang on a second. And
so
I know it's impossible, but it's more of what we did. So we were just sitting around, and we were like, I'm not feeling sleepy. What else can I do? Maybe let's just get back on the road.
Yeah,
and that's where I found the difference. That it's a huge difference driving in the U.S. Between the night and the day. And traffic is not a problem, but still, it saves a lot of.
It saves a lot of time. You're absolutely right. I mean, traffic in Boston. Although it's funny, in Boston, you see, they're cute. There won't be any traffic, but then they'll do all the construction. They'll do it. So they'll take 4 lanes and they'll make it 1, and then you still have
It is not
like
going
an
to
hour
stop
left.
you, but it is going to slow you.
Yeah, it's going to slow you. So that's the United States. Probably been a few other places or whatever, but I've been to DC. I was talking about DC. I've been to Washington DC and seen like the White House and national monuments, which is really cool. DC is beautiful, but and then once, I'm not going to go into it, but it was nice. But I went to Baltimore, Maryland. It's a pretty cool city.
So what's one destination that you have in your head? And this is I'm gonna ask you in the U.S. and outside the U.S. where you definitely want to go.
California is definitely where I want to be when I'm in the United States. If I'm traveling somewhere, if I had anywhere in the United States that I could choose to go to, I'd go to California. And then outside, I was going to tell too, I went to Canada. I love Canada so much. I think it is one of the best places. Last year I went to Niagara and Toronto, and then this year, just a few weeks ago, I went to Montreal.
Wow.
So of the 3, I really like Niagara, but I like Niagara for the photogenic portion of it. There's a lot to capture of the falls, and then they have this absolutely gorgeous park in the north part of Niagara. Their state park. They have a butterfly exhibit, a rose garden. It is absolutely beautiful, and they have a school and they have students who help maintain it, and it's really, really cool to see that and to watch. Just to watch them, maintain the grounds. I'd say Niagara. I really like Toronto too, but if I really had to pick, I like Niagara and I like Montreal. So I had a really great time in Montreal. Montreal's got a downtown area, but it's very, very small. It's actually similar to the financial district in Boston.
So it seems like like you, whenever you get the opportunity, you do like traveling.
Yes, I love to travel. If I get the opportunity, I like to go somewhere, and it's expensive, but it's worth it. It's cool to go and see somewhere new, and I love anywhere that I can take my film camera and just go, take photos of stuff.
So with your travel experience, talk more about the people. Talk more about because U.S. Canada it somehow comes in the same culture, or
Yeah.
I mean I'm sure that different states can makes a little bit of difference, but culturally, custom wise, it somehow comes in the same platform. How do you see a difference being in a same country?
Yep.
And how do you see people when someone who is from a completely different background who
Yeah.
doesn't understand your culture,
Mm-hmm.
does that make you enthusiastic to learn more about them, or
Mhm.
does that makes you motivate to talk about your culture?
Sure. So I'm typically more enthusiastic to learn about theirs, but the way that I view it, and you're absolutely right. So we're talking same continent, okay? United States and Canada, same piece of land. In my personal opinion, people in Canada are lovely, and I personally feel like they are a lot more friendly overall than
Wow.
people in the United States. I really do. I really believe that everywhere that I've gone, the people. So the thing to remember is that it's the same language. In two of the three places. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in Toronto and Niagara, it's the same language. People there are very nice, and I'm interested in learning about them. But they're governed. Their society is still different. So you're right. It's the same continent, but parts of their way of life are a little bit different from here. And then in Montreal, they speak French Canadian, so that was fun having the translator out. And they are like bilingual. They'll speak English
Mhm.
and they'll speak French, but French is their preferred language. So it was really kind of cool learning a little bit of French and speaking that as best as I could. But I wanted to learn more about their culture. I was interested about it, and like for instance, this is something small, but like in the United States, we have exit signs.
Mhm.
In Canada, it's this green little square, and it's people running. It's this
Wow.
dude who's like running. He looks like he's like running for dear life, like running out the building. And I always thought that was funny, and I always wondered if it was something else. But that's like the way that they show that something's like an exit in
Yes.
Canada. So it's pretty cool.
Something like that even we have in India, having a person, walking towards a direction that shows the exit or a sign. So something what I can relate with that.
And I think a lot of people, I like having someone who's like, my culture is a little bit different from yours, and I'd like to share that with you or show that to you, versus someone who's like, we're in another part of the country, we're on, we have a different government, but we're just like the United States, and I wouldn't want to hear anyone say that or whatever. I'd want someone to have their own individuality, and I want us to have our individuality. So, what you're saying really kind of hits home with me. But I have learned a lot. When you go to Niagara, Toronto, they all speak English. It feels like it, but there's still something different. The way
In the
that
accent, in the thought
the
processes.
accent, the way that they set up, maybe not their museums, but some of their attractions and the way that they have certain things that they're promoting. Yeah, of course, like their own brands, like Tim Horton is huge in Canada, and you really only see Tim Hortons if you go to like New York City. Like you're not gonna, to my knowledge, you're not gonna walk around Boston and see a Tim Hortons, but that's huge in Canada. Um, and they have their own places, but there is one thing, and I mean this, that differentiates us from Canada. I mean, and it's their food. They have the most delicious food of all different, nationalities and different, just different dishes, and I really love the food.
I can tell you, this topic you brought up to the wrong guy.
Yeah, all right.
When it comes to the food, I'm sorry, there is no better food that you can ever get other than India.
Okay.
There is no limit.
Okay.
There is no limit to the food. You have the accessibility to the point you can think about it. Open your app, you have it right at your doorsteps.
Yeah.
From the flavors to the point which taste you want, the texture you want. There are like 10 different types of chickens that you can make. There are like thousands of sausages that you can make. It's like you name it, because it's a vast country. It has like n number of states that comes with their own identity. So just for the food part, I'm sorry, I'm being a little,
But that's okay. I love
Yeah.
Indian. I really like Indian food, and I I've been able to expose myself and try a whole bunch of like different types of
Because we
food,
were
and I
talking
like
about the
Indian
other day
cuisine.
on the call, about the spices, and you did say that you can handle spices, and that is unusual for people in America. If
Not a lot, but I can handle spices. I like a little bit of a kick. I don't mind. But yeah, I know that in Indian dishes and cuisine, there's a lot of spice, and that's great. But I think if I ate it every day, I couldn't handle it. But you're probably used to it.
I think it's also a difference that how it's been persuaded, because people consider spice means chili, and that's the difference, that the food is flavorful depending on the amount of spice that you want to add in. That makes a difference, but otherwise it's the flavor of different sauces. Yes, we use a lot of sauces, and the food takes a lot of time to cook, and some of the dishes would take like overnight. So it makes a lot. It's a lot of work, but then the pleasure that you get after.
Exactly. After you have it is well worth it. A lot of the dishes are made in woks, right? Typically,
Yes.
aren't they? Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, it's really like interesting to try something different. And this country is born. It's funny. This country is so influenced by like burgers and chicken and steak and tofu for our vegan friends, which I love. I love tofu, but I'm not a vegetarian, and I can eat whatever, and I like eating all different types of foods. But it's really nice whenever you go and you see something that's a little bit different. And
food is a topic that I can tell you one complete whole podcast can be created,
Yeah,
just
I know,
on food.
exactly.
It's like a vast topic.
We should have a cooking podcast sometime.
Oh, definitely. Let's have a competition between the American and the Indian
All
cooking.
right, that sounds good.
So
That sounds cool.
so we talked about food, we talked about travel. Let's talk more about people.
Okay.
How do you see with choices of people that they make, and it is regardless of what they do in their life, it is to be part of the acceptance.
Okay, so are you asking me how I accept people with
Yes.
the choices that they make?
Yes. Like something that you are probably not going to do what
Yeah.
you see other people doing, but
Yeah.
because you use the word called behavior and communication. So how does that help you out to even connect with, because it's not that you can be friends with everyone,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
right.
not that you have to be the enemy of everyone.
Okay.
So how do you deal with
So
it?
the other word I'll bring into this is education.
Wow.
Yes, which is it's really important to be educated as much as possible. And as you live your life, you see that there are some people who are more educated than other people, or understand something different. But it's also tough because I say that like someone might be more educated than somebody else, but that doesn't mean that both people are not capable of comprehending
Mhm.
what's being said.
Mhm.
So I would say that if I disagree with someone or they're doing something that I don't agree with, I'll typically vocalize that and say there's something with it I would handle this, respond to this, or something with it I would act, behave. It's not something that I would do, but it's still a free country. You can do what you want in this country. So if you feel like that's something that's different, then you can do it. And a lot of people will post online and will say too, as part of psychology in the United States, and it's so important here. You can still have friends that don't agree with you completely on everything. Some things I prefer that people we are on the same page about. There's certain like values that I would want in a specific person, and would hope that my friends all have them too. But that doesn't mean we have to agree on everything.
Yeah.
One of my best friends, George, we don't always agree on everything, and but he's very direct with me, so we have really good conversations. But it's never anything that would break us or break up the friendship or whatever. It's really strong, and that's what to me
Mhm.
I feel is real, instead of having someone who's like, oh, they agree with about 70%
So
of what I
you
say.
don't avoid the conversations, rather you find it healthy being discussing to understand it better.
That's right, to understand where they're coming from or what they feel. Everyone is raised by different both viewpoints and a different message. Like I said, different levels of education, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just kind of, it's not, it even goes deeper than that. You don't even have to know someone and see what they're doing and be like, this is so wrong, or I'm so aggravated by what they're doing. You just have to focus on what's good for you and what's positive for you. And sometimes you can just look at somebody else and be like, well, if you feel that way, that's okay, but I wish you well, or I don't agree with it, and that's your priority.
Has there been any experience wherein you have lost your relationships because of the disagreements on the points that you have?
Yeah, I mean, for a relationship, I say, for friends or whatever, if I have a falling out with a friend, typically it's something where it's one of two things. It's either, if I have like a falling out with a friend, it's either like a difference of opinion or a difference of matter. I admit too, I have a very strong personality, and also there's been times in the past where I've like lost a friend or whatever because I'm very like strong, and I feel very passionate about things, and it's just too much for them, and that that's okay too, but it's just like how I feel and how I express it. And then in relationships, before I met my husband, I was in a relationship with my one of my ex-boyfriends, and that was for like about 3 years, and that was like just as I was like towards like the end of high school and then into college, and we didn't have like, we were two different people. That one just kind of ended because I wanted certain things in my life going forward that he necessarily either didn't, or that he wasn't as privy to. Like for instance, like it's not a big deal, but like I really like having a family, and that's really important to me. And I don't know if it was as important to him. He wasn't against it, but it wasn't as important. And I wanted to have like a big like support system, and I think that family is important in the United States in general. But there are so many different types of families in this country. They're not all one or the other. So do I think that it's important and it's a big influence? Yes, but one thing I will say is that for me, I see the family that I know, like what I've done through growing up, from seeing my family and like my parents and the way that they interacted with each other, and that's why being in a long-term relationship, being married, like that was important to me. But a lot of people forget that there are all different types of like families. There's chosen family, there's your biological family. There are different ones. So are they important? Yes, but family is more of a loose term in today's society than it was back when I was growing up. It's just like you had a full-time job and you got married and you had kids, and it was really like pushed back then, and it's still important now, but it just looks different. All the families look different. It doesn't have to be something specific, and there are all different types of relationships, and there are all different types of marriages. So do I think it's important? Yes, but I don't think that it has as much impact now as like when I was a teenager.
All right. So talk more about your passion of photography, because this is what something that I see that you are really doing a great job. Not only because you have to, but because this is what your passion is. This is what you enjoy. So how did you make your passion your earning source? And this is what something that makes you who you are.
Yep, sure. So for my photography, I actually do quite a bit of it casually, and the reason why is because I really like to photograph my friends. What happened is, I ended up, how was I saying? I ended up going to California a couple of years ago, and my husband bought a film camera, and it was a really nice, it's called a Rebel. It's a Canon Rebel. It's like a very standard film camera, and it's not expensive, but you can use a lens with it, so it's better than a little point and shoot with like a standard lens. You get nicer photos out of it. We went there, and he took the photos on the roll, and he got them developed, and I liked it, but then he had it, and one day I just decided that I would pick it up. So this is after we got back from California. But I started to photograph people, and that's what I really like doing, is people. I like landscapes and everything, but I photograph people. And when I started to photograph people, I realized that it was kind of like with a film, it was taking you back into, like a different like age or era. Like there's no way to recreate what you see digitally with photos on, the film. It's different. So I started to take photos of like family, and then I started to do friends, and I said, would you like to come and like pose for me, and I'll do a couple portraits of you. We'll do something creative. And then I started to realize that in addition to regular portrait films that are just typical color films that Kodak makes, you can do really creative things. You can do different colors like purple and blue and silver, and it fit my personality
You
well
love colors.
yeah, I love colors, and even that, like there's one that like that mimics a rainbow. I thought that it was a way for me to express my personality as well as other people's. I thought it was really really cool. So
how would you gonna educate a person who does not have any information about how the camera works? I know that in the phones we have camera in there, but still what they are doing is a casual picture
that's right,
taking,
it's casual,
but not the expertise.
Yeah, sure. So with photography, the best thing to remember is that with film, if I was explaining film, we're talking about film here. There was 35 millimeter film. Light is your friend, so you definitely need a lot of light, and you also need to make sure that you understand like how ISO works. So
talking about your passion, what would be your one message to the beginners who have interest in photography but do not know how to start their journey?
sure. So it's really important. I've actually brought my camera. This is my
Fantastic.
baby. I love it. I would
That's
say
a cool toy.
Yeah, thank you. It is. It's beautiful. I love it. It's really cool. I love the color of it and everything. It's actually really nice. So, and it's light. It's really lightweight. It's a little heavy, but it's. I mean, it's not the. It's a good camera. So, but anyway, so I would say definitely light. So when you're talking about 35 millimeter film photography, you want to make sure you have enough light, and you also need to understand how ISO works, how sensitive the lens is going to be to the light. A lot of people will take film photos on a disposable camera, or they'll take something without a lens, like what this one has here. It has a little lens on it. So
Nice.
But aside from that, it's really making sure that your photos are in focus, that you hold it really steady as well. That's really important with film photography. Making sure that you have enough light. If you're in an indoor area and you have a camera like this, using, holding it steady and using a flash really helps to kind of like bring out the photos. And it's a lot of fun. It's just a learning experience. You just have to go out and shoot. The good news, though, is that typically if you buy Kodak film, or you buy something like a standard, like Ultramax or Portra, there's a lot of sensitivities in there, so you get a nice photo. Even if you're in a darker area, you still use a flash and get a nice area. But like on a day like today where it's sunny, as long as you have the sun under you, you'll usually get really nice photos. So it's really cool.
So what would be that one model that they can begin with that would not be monetarily pressuring for the new beginners, but if they want to start their journey in the photography, which camera they should start with?
I'd say for film, to make sure that you really like it and you like the vibe of it, I would use something what is called a toy camera. It's something like you can get from Kodak. Kodak makes them, and you just buy them online and you get them shipped to your house, and then you load them with a film, but it's reusable. So if you want to try like one roll with like a $10 film, you can do that and just try and shoot it, and then you can try a color film if you wanted to. But that gives you an idea if you like it. And then if you really like it, I would say go something with. I really like shooting on Canon cameras. There are many, but like a Canon Rebel is affordable.
Let's make a little bit of difference here with the cameras that we have in our phones versus the real cameras. Absolutely, there is no comparison, and with the quality, it is going
They're
to be.
starting to get there a little bit, but it's still not the same. They've made great strides though, but
it's more about when it comes to making the difference. Yes, stability is one thing that you can never fight with the camera versus the phone, because your hands would not be stabilizing the video as good as it does in the camera.
Yeah, that's right.
But when it comes to the picture quality, I think that some of the iPhones, at least in the latest models, is making a huge difference. Is that what something that you can also recommend to start with? Because not everyone is well equipped with the camera and educated obviously with the starting they can start learning, and everything is available on the YouTube to learn.
Yeah, it's great. I think I'll answer this in the best way that I can. That's kind of positive on both ends. First off, the camera is great, but the camera gives you an idea about how passionate you are. If you go out and there are settings in an iPhone and Android to take certain photos, and you can set the settings there. And if you really like how crisp those are, but you want to go like a next step further, you want to capture more, then yeah, I would say go into considering purchasing a digital camera, a film camera too. But if we're just talking about digital, if you really like what's on the iPhone and you like the digital look, you'd want a digital camera.
So because we are talking to an expert, I'm sorry to cut you out, because there is like a lot more to your dictionary that you have that is never going to be endless, because this is what the expert is all about.
This is what I do. I do this all the time.
I mean, this is what this expert is all about. This is his passion, and there is going to be no ending. But because I want to talk about more into the experiences of what you see and how do you see that can make a difference. So what difference did you see the pictures that I took, because all of those pictures being taken by the phone, and I'm sure it would have a feedback, and that's what, because I want to learn. So what would be your feedback on the pictures that I have taken?
They're nice, and I like the photos that you've taken of the beach here, because it's a great vista. It's really nice, and a lot of your videos are actually very clear. So when you put a reel on there, or you put something like that, it's awesome and it's really interesting. But for the photos, I would say they're great, but the main difference between the digital and the film is that when you take the film photos, you're kind of like transported like to like a this like vibey like vintage like type area or idea, and you can't get that with digital. You can get close to it and you can use filters with it. But I think in general that what you post is really cool, and I really like it. It's focused around your page and about Hull, and I really like that. So I think that they're great. I mean, it's obviously you have a nice camera in your phone, so
I think really cool. I think that every picture also makes a lot of difference. What story are you trying to portray from that picture?
That's right.
And that's where I'm gonna add his writing skills, because that's a great combination of a photographer being a writer, because the more you are able to elaborate your story better, the more people are able to relate with it.
That's right.
So let's talk about your writing. Yeah. Your writing combination with your photography.
Yeah, sure. So they go hand in hand, and my main passion is my photography, but part of telling a story is writing about it and about doing something. And sometimes the story that I have, if it's for a photo project, I try to do something interesting, and it's either like a commentary or I might make something up that's like a tale or something. Doesn't happen often, but I have done something like that. But for my website, it's about me and my life and somewhere where I went or what I noticed. So it's just something to kind of read along with if you choose to read it. I think that when I first started the website, I started to write a lot more, and now I kind of write a little bit less, but I still write a lot on Instagram. And another thing I do in addition to my website is my project for We're Not Really Strangers, which is a card game based on human connection. And I play it with people, and I go into Boston, and I reach out to people and ask if they're interested, much in the same way like you would ask me about being interested in doing the podcast. And if they want to, be featured, and I just sit down and I listen to people, because a lot has happened, in the past 10, 20 years, and I like being able to sit down with someone who's from a different walk of life from me and seeing what it is about them, like I said before, like what makes them tick, what makes, what is it about them that they're passionate about, and try to like gain a perspective about it, because they might be passionate about something that I have no idea how to do.
So if I'm not wrong, at this stage in your life, you are in a learning stage.
Yeah.
And I think, if I have to be honest, throughout life, we are learning one thing or the other on a regular basis. But right now, your focus is why such a thing happens, or instead of judging, you basically get into the depth and understand that particular subject.
Yeah, exactly. I try to understand the why, and sometimes it's harder to understand than it is to. Sometimes it's hard to understand and comprehend certain things, but there are other parts where I've met a lot of people, and they have different identities, they have different thought processes, and I just try to see a way where like I could make sense of that, understand it, and I do my best to. So yeah.
So do you see a difference between the writing stories and the stories that are being picturized on a camera? Because but
Yeah,
when I
I got
started,
it.
but when I started, reading your story, because I had to, a little bit of homework, so that's where I couldn't stop myself, and I kept on reading it,
Oh.
reading it, and because it is the type of vocabulary that you have used, it's not very hard, wherein a person requires maybe Google few words and find the synonyms. But at the same time, it's very simple English versus what you see or hear in the reels or in the YouTube videos. How do you differentiate both type of stories?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm kind of writing about something about like my life on the website, and then on Instagram, I'm writing about the person. So the way that I differentiate it is I want it to be digestible, and that's kind of what I said it from the start. So you go there once a month, and you look at it for a couple of minutes, and you kind of take it in, and you take in the story and the photos, and then you go on with your day. So I really appreciate what you said because I try to make it as interesting as possible and try to bring a little bit of humor into it. But I'm really happy whenever you say that like you look at it and I just wanted to keep reading it because that's my purpose. I kind of want to draw people into what it is that I created and then have you go on with your day. But I really have enjoyed doing that. And the only real difference that I'd say is that on the website I'm writing about where I've gone and what that is, and when I'm online or I'm writing a story, it's about like my emotions or what I felt or what I decided to do to post somebody for photos and how that worked out. So that's really I'd say the main difference there. But my main draw is to show somebody's beauty or their story, and then continue to show their beauty through the photography. So.
Especially with your every month story, it's somehow give a little bit of background to relate with the previous episode, but at the same time every story brings something new.
That's right.
Like for a person like me to expect a person who is a passionate photographer or a filmmaker is a completely different experience to be interested in aviation, and that's what something that you have mentioned in your stories as well, your interest towards aviation, wherein you spend a lot of time towards the airports. So let's talk more about that.
Sure. So I absolutely do. I think that I'm lucky that I live near Boston, and there's a lot of planes that come in and out of Logan a lot, and there are a lot of great places to go and watch planes, whether it be, in South Boston, like Carson Beach is a great place, Castle Island in Southie is wicked cool, and then on the North Shore in Winthrop, there's a park called Coughlin Park, and it's like right across from where they land. You can just see so many planes. And I've written about that as well. And I think it's just seeing something so large and so majestic that's actually in the air and watching it land or take off. It's just, for me, it's so relaxing. And because of my personality and the way that I am, I'm actually surprised that I'm so into it because I'm typically either on the go or I have so much energy. And this is just something where I can watch it and watch them land or take off. And I can just kind of like hang out on, the rocks or by the water there and just watch it. And it's a lot of fun. But it's definitely something that's really cool. I'd say that I just love to fly in general. So watching the planes come in and out is great. But when I'm up in a plane, I'm really happy. I'm not nervous about flying and stuff. And I'm not wild about turbulence, but it doesn't bother me. Like
that is what I was talking about. Because if you fly a lot, there is no way that you haven't experienced turbulence.
That's right.
I personally have, to the point wherein I sort of went into the acceptance that maybe this is the time.
This is the time. Yep, I get it. A lot of people feel that way. A lot of people do. And then like the pilot will be like, it wasn't so bad, or it wasn't. But I think the thing that doesn't like make me nervous, but like that it's going to be a little bit rough when they start.
And I'm going to question when the pilot is trying to land 5 different times and it's still not working out. Oh, that's where you question that what is happening.
I get that or whatever. There are a lot of factors that go into it. There are a lot of really strong winds. There could be something there in Boston. It happens a lot. I think that they do a really good job there because it's a smaller airport, but it's not necessarily the wind. But what happens is that all these planes want to try and land at once, and
Yep.
they only have so much room. So it's literally an airport where typically when you land, you're not hanging out on the tarmac at the end of it for like long periods of time waiting to get to your gate. Like even if they move it away and the plane doesn't go right to their gate, you get out of they get out of the way. Like they have to land and get out of the way.
And I think this is also the similarity between the Boston and the all big airports here. To give an example for the New York as well.
Yeah, New York is really cool. Whatever, LaGuardia is smaller, and they have to do that there. But JFK is humongous.
Yes.
I actually stayed at the TWA hotel once or whatever. That's like the 60s theme hotel that they have there. And we had a view of the planes coming in, like the jumbo jets for the international, and it was so cool. But that's a place that has a lot of land. Like they definitely got something good going on. Like LaGuardia, Boston, it's just, they know what they're doing and they do a great job. But like I try to explain to people, like on a set, like it's Saturday afternoon now, or whatever, like those planes are gonna like come in hot and heavy. Like there's five, so people here they land, but I think about someone from an international flight, and it's funny because they circle all around Massachusetts, and you think that it's far, but it's really not when you're up in the air. But I see a lot of planes, and my husband Steve and I, like, we have this really cool app that tells you like what the plane is. Like if you see it in the sky, you can look for it, and they'll have like these flights from like London and like other places.
Really?
Yeah, and they'll go all the way down to the South Shore. Like they'll come here. Like if a plane is circling, it'll come out towards here, like towards Hull, and then turn around and go to Boston.
Yeah.
Because the plane is so huge. And then you have to think about airspace and getting out of the way of other planes. But yeah, it's really a thing there. So I see what you're saying, but it's just like you're in the air for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
They're starting to land, and then you don't land, and you go right back up. So.
I mean, I think that it makes a lot of difference of how you started your travel journey, because I think that someone who is starting their travel journey maybe on a road or on the air or maybe in the train, it makes a huge difference about their first journey. So what was your first journey?
For travel, probably in a car, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say it would be in a car. Yeah. Just like driving or whatever, yeah, it was definitely in a car. Yeah, from when I was a kid.
But then it still has no comparison with flying in a plane.
No, it doesn't, and it's so much faster to fly. Like I'd love to own a helicopter. Like everyone in this state would love to own a helicopter.
Have you ever tried? That is bringing me a question. That have you ever tried skydiving? Because that's what I tried last month.
Yeah, I saw that. That was so bomb. I'd like to. I don't think my husband's so wild about it.
I can tell you my personal experience because I have done scuba dive multiple times. Skydiving was the first time, but that did not give me the kick to do it again.
Okay.
Because it's a very minimum, like maybe hardly 10 or 15 seconds when you are in that free fall, and then once you stabilize your body, that is the time when you see no difference between the paragliding and the skydiving. It is just the point from where you jump out of the plane and your parachute is getting open.
Yeah, but the experience is the view. The experience is the drop and the view,
yes,
which I think is amazing.
Yes, definitely. And that's where I can relate it more than flying in the plane, but just flying with the parachute, wherein you don't know that whether it's going to get open or whether you're going to land safely.
Yeah, that's the difficult part of it. And they have a lot of safeguards, I think, in place now to make sure, like, if it doesn't open the first time, it definitely opens the second. Like, that's everything I've ever watched on TV or whatever. Like, we have a safety, and I do believe it. But you're right. I mean, if it didn't open, you'd be in
at a point
trouble.
where they are signing you a contract that if something happens, they're not responsible.
They're not responsible.
That is the truth. And
I mean, in fairness or whatever, it's to me, in my opinion, it's legitimate. But the reason it's legitimate is that you're
making the choice.
Equipment. Yep, you're making the choice. You're going up in the plane. If you step off that plane into the open air or whatever with the equipment on, you're the one who made that choice.
Exactly.
But I mean, of course, the understanding is that you would safely land on the ground or whatever.
No, it was very well experienced, and anyone who is looking for the skydiving, especially in the Hull and the neighborhood, Maine is the closest area that I could find a skydiving place, and I would definitely recommend someone who has interest or who is willing to to follow that adventure, definitely we
It
should try
looked
that.
really cool. That was
Thank
awesome. We
you.
took the video. That was so sick.
So that was the cameraman from the company
Oh,
itself.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
So
went
they,
down with you?
yes.
That's
So
cool.
first that cameraman jumps. No, actually, first they make you jump, and then the cameraman jumps, and that's where they come in front. The good part is because your instructor is very well, trained. So he's the one who is basically controlling everything.
Yeah.
The only part is to bring that smile on your face, especially when you have fear, that what's happening, because you are clueless which direction you are going, where the wind is taking you.
You know, it's like looking at a plane or whatever. You see all these crashes and you hear about them, but really, the one thing that I agree with in this country and others that people try to explain is that these are terrible things that happen, but they happen so few times. And when someone says that it's safer to fly than drive a car, I'm 100% behind that. I completely believe it. I really do. I think it's one of the safest ways of travel, and you hope that nothing bad would ever happen to you. But I mean, it's just it's a really
I'm a
just
big
fun way to
believer
travel.
that every day should be lived like a last day, and
Yeah.
every moment should be enjoyed like this is not coming back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
I get
this
that.
moment, I'm not sure if it's gonna coming back. We've been filming this. This is the moment to make the best out of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and doing this and talking about where I'm coming from and kind of having something to like share with you about what it's like to grow up here in Massachusetts is really special to me, and that's really my purpose. I think that I could like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, like it wouldn't have even mattered to me as much, but something in me really changed, and I just feel like it's important to share this now and have this story, and I'm really grateful that I have it.
So here's one question that I'm gonna ask again related to the photography or the filming.
Yeah.
Are you planning anything on making the short films and like just maybe not on people's life in general, but just like how we are seeing the production films and starting your own production
see what you're
house and giving an opportunity to the artists who generally fight to get through to the platforms like Netflix or the Amazon Prime, but then something that can merge with your passion and combined with others' ability to make a difference?
Sure. So that's an awesome question. This will answer it is that honestly, no, I'm not looking to do short films. I think that they're great, and I love documentaries. I would be part of a documentary. If someone said, "Hey, I'm doing a documentary. Would you like to be a part of this or interview someone for me or help with that?" I would. But on my own, would I? No. And the reason I say no is because I'm documenting people's lives through the projects that I have, and they work along with both my schedule and my preference of involvement.
Got
I
it.
couldn't see like a career doing that. But I do try to make reels every once in a while, and I think I might try and make one, like later this year from my website. A lot of people have engagement with reels, and they're like, you really need to do that. That's the way to go to get the biggest exposure. And they are right, but I have plenty. I have a lot of people who are really interested in my photography, and I'm interested in theirs, and it's just not as important for me. So sometimes I'll make something like that or something short form, but no. I think it's really cool. I love documentaries, but I see myself continuing to do what I'm doing now. So.
That's great. I mean, at least you have the vision, you have that clarity that what you want to do, and that's where sometimes people get confused.
That's right.
Because both things are relatable. Having the acting career versus the photography, filmography is what something that with time, when one person is not getting the success in one mode, they try and change, and that's I think the part where they make mistakes. Instead of trying 100% in one direction, they try and spread their legs in multiple directions.
It's totally okay. You should never attack someone who's like, I'm not sure what I want either from life, or I'm not sure what I want to do next. But if you are someone who knows what they want to do, or they have an idea of what they want to do, and you find joy and you take pride in that, and you are really, really happy with that, then you don't have to worry about other things and what's going on with other people in the world. You just have to focus on that and what you like. My only thing that I'd say is that it's okay. A lot of people don't understand this. It's okay to just try something and see if you really loved it or not. And if it's something you want to continue with. And to your point, that it'd be something like that, like doing a short form film or a documentary. I haven't done it before, and I think that the way that I document people through my projects online on Instagram is the best way that I'm doing it. But perhaps I sit down and I have an interview with somebody else and I'm helping, on a project, and I really love that. It really speaks to me. So it kind of keeps me from being, insisting on being ignorant on something, but also saying that I'm confident about, I know what I want. And I think that that's really the key. Like I see my confidence and I know that, that's correct. I think that, anyone can express themselves in their projects in the way that they want to, but it it really helps if you're someone who's serious about the message that you're trying to spread or that you're trying to send. And that takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of work. And there are many times where I get exhausted, and I'm really lucky to have the support system that I do, because it takes a lot of energy, but I've just always had it, through my life. Like everything that I've done and everything that I'm successful with and what I do, my career, everything, I've just been lucky enough to figure it out.
The
Like,
main
that's the
important
best
thing
way.
that you're happy with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I think one of the problems, or maybe the challenges, I would use the right word, that people are challenged to accept themselves,
Yeah.
or to be happy with what they are or what they believe
Yeah.
in. And that's something that I think that you identified in a very early age and kept that belief on. And to some credit, I would also give it to your partner to have been able to hold your hand in every aspect of life, or whenever you fell down, he's
He's
there.
been very supportive, and we've been together for 20 years. And
So just so you know, this guy has just completed his 10 years wedding anniversary. Congratulations for that.
yes, thank you, I appreciate it. But yeah, so I've been married for 10 years, and I've been with my husband for 20, and it's been an adventure, but it's been a really good one. And the number one reason that we succeed is we know how to communicate with one another. There's never a time where there's a negative judgment about us. It's really, I put a feature on my Instagram, and we went to where we got married, which was Cambridge City Hall, and we took photos, both digital and film, of us celebrate our 10 years of marriage.
Wow.
Yeah, and we, I kind of put on there or whatever that, with the theme and the title of it is that it's been unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what it is. That's really how I've, survived so long in this, and how we've been supportive of each other. But you're really lucky when you have someone that you feel like you can communicate with, and you really. I never really believed in soulmates, but I feel like this is someone who,
It's a blessing.
yeah, and we just kind of know what we're speaking about, and what we just kind of know what message we're trying to convey to each other sometimes without even saying anything. So that look, you get a look, and
I
when you're
believe
married
in
for a
that.
long time.
I believe in that. Good talks are not dependent on words.
Yep, yep. But sometimes they are. Sometimes it's very important that you use words. Sometimes it's very important. But yeah, good understanding sometimes just comes from, it's kind of like reading your partner's face and just knowing kind of what
Yes.
they're thinking, and you get to know that person's preferences. When you're with someone for so long, you just start to really realize what they like, what they don't like, and what they prefer. And if I'm doing something, and I'm meeting with someone for one of my projects, he'll typically come along, but he also knows too, how, I kind of have an idea of how either involved or how much he wants to contribute towards it. But it's great. He's been very supportive, and we have a really good bond. So it's really cool.
It is very much visible in your pictures, and the
Thanks.
way that you both are supporting each other. It's commendable, and that's an inspiration to the humanity, that having respect, having a good communication, and that empathy that can bring the positivity to the world is what the real deal is all about.
Yeah, and I will admit, I think that sometimes it is, I won't say easier, but it's a little bit more, it's a little less challenging for me, or it's a little bit more enjoyable for me to share like the pride in who I am and what I express because I have that level of support. And not everyone has that. So I'm really lucky that I do. Like it's
But
really
then
cool.
you are also making a big difference by supporting the pride and by having you representing and going and making different you know pictures and meeting people
Yep.
and kind of motivating people.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I like to motivate people. But the one thing I can tell you is that just growing up gay and being in Massachusetts, it just comes so naturally to me. It always has, and it's really a place like a community where it's very widely accepted.
Hmm.
It's very accepted. And, in most of New England, I think
Hmm.
that it's like a really big, like welcoming area, anyways. But Massachusetts just has something special,
Hmm.
Like we got married at Cambridge City Hall, and that's where they did the first like legalized gay marriages back in the state in 2004.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's been a long time, but like we were one of the first, and it's always really just kind of stuck with me, and that's honestly one of the reasons why I stay here. And there's one thing I can really tell you about why I have so much pride living here and why I love Boston. It's really the one place where I can express myself in the way that I want, and I can go, do what I want, and it's just accepted. There's nothing, really, it's not a big deal. So
I think that's really great that you are able to live your life the way that you wanted, or you are still looking forward for it to make differences not only for you but to the community. At the same time, it is equally impressing how you are spreading the positivity out of your relationship and being supporting each other.
yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I'll be very blunt with you, though. I have to be realistic. Like it's not perfect. Nothing ever is. There are challenges to everything in life, but as you get older, you start to find out what the answers to some of those, questions are and what some of those pressures are, and you find your way. I'm just someone who's been very lucky to be able to find my way, so I really appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, and what you're doing too and showcasing Hull, I'd say I've taken photos here and I've done my website story here in Hull, but you want to just capture something that's both charming, like you're literally just telling people through the content that you create that it's a nice place to visit and it's a nice place to live, but what you're really showing is that you're happy here. So
That's what the beginning of me starting this channel. I mean, to be honest with you, I was being a little selfish because I'm like, how am I going to capture these many pictures and just keep it in my phone? Because it's so impossible to avoid taking the pictures when you see such a beauty that you don't see on a regular basis. And that's
yeah.
the speciality of Hull, that every day it brings different colors, it brings different beauty, that I just love capturing it. And then I thought that maybe I should make an Instagram page where I will just keep on posting and keeping my phone empty rather than transferring the pictures in a hard disk on a regular basis to make the best use out of it. But then I also found it as an opportunity for a person who is staying away from the country and their loved ones. How would they be able to connect on a regular basis of what's happening in my
Yeah,
life? Because
exactly.
with your work, with your responsibilities, you cannot travel on a regular basis. But that was one mode for me to communicate it with my loved ones and show the
That's
beauty
really
of Hull
cool.
and
So
see
that they
that.
can see it.
Yes.
Yeah, so that they can see it. I think that that's a really cool thing, and I just really try to show people why I like living here. And like you were talking a little bit about the website as well, where I go somewhere different each month. That's on
Mhm.
purpose. I could keep going back to the same area and doing a different story, but I want people to see different parts of the state that are interesting that you can just go and visit and hang out on the day. So if you live on the North Shore, there's somewhere you can go, and if you live down here, there's other places, like Hull, and then of course there's Boston. But a lot of people in the
Mhm.
state do not live in Boston; they live in the suburbs. So I like to go to those suburb places and make stories. A lot of places are well known, but some are not as well
I mean,
known.
Hull is a great example. In the winter, they call it a ghost town,
Yeah,
and I personally experienced that because I came in here in winters, and I'm like, am I the only one living in the streets? Especially coming from the country, where in every second door person, culturally, socially, you are very well involved, and that's where I'm like, how am I going to survive here? But then when the summer came in, it changed the completely different
Yeah, it
view.
did. It predominantly coastal towns throughout the coast. You know, the eastern coast of Massachusetts
Mhm.
are ghost towns throughout the winter because obviously it's cold. But sometimes you get really lucky in a January, late December. It's still cold, of course, and you have to wear a jacket and jeans. But the sun is warm enough that it's charming to like walk around and you can do that. But if you if you you know don't like the freezing cold, then you definitely don't want to
I mean, I'm not sure that how the difference would have been if I would have directly flew from India to the US, but because prior to that I was also living in London, which is equally freezing. I'm not saying that equally, but it's somehow takes you a little bit closer to the temperature that we have here
hmm
because it's extremely windy. It's always raining, so so
yeah,
so
I hear
it's,
that a lot about
yeah.
London.
So it's nothing compared to where I come from, but I think that that amount of time that I initially spent here with less people made me more understanding about this particular place. And since people started coming in summer and being involved with people with talks, made me more educated about the fashion of this whole place.
Yeah, like I said, it's a really cool place to like come and visit. Winters here are definitely tough. I don't think they're as brutal as like somewhere like if you live like north of here, like winter in Maine, winter in Montreal, and we were talking about Canada. That's very challenging. I think that would be a very challenging place to live. I don't think I'd want to live there during the winter. But here, I can live during the winter. I don't know. Sometimes we have warm winters. Sometimes we have hell winters with a lot of snow. But it's really cool. So I really am happy here, and I like all the seasons. I can't wait for fall and to take
Mhm.
photos of foliage, and I'm looking forward to that too. So
Nice.
yeah, but it's cool. But yeah, like I really appreciate you noticing both what I've created and my work, and what I'm passionate about, and just going out of your way to really take the time today to get to know me a little bit
My
more
pleasure,
and
and
talk
thanks to
about
you
stuff.
for
Yeah,
for driving on here from Boston, and I know it's a weekend and still being able to take time for the podcast is really
it's
appreciated.
a lovely day. It's a really nice day to
It
do
is
a
gorgeous.
podcast.
It is gorgeous,
It
and
really is. But thank you so much.
pleasure is all mine, sir.
All right, cool.
And I'm sure that the audience is going to learn a lot about the humanity.
Alright, guys, we know the first episode ran a bit long, especially since it was recorded outdoors. You might notice some background noise here and there, but that's what happens when real ordinary people share their extraordinary experiences with no limits on location or time. We hope you enjoyed John's colorful journey and his inspiring vision of equality and humanity. If you connect with our approach of embracing the ordinary and appreciating everyday stories, we would love your support. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for notifications. And for regular updates, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. Links are in the description box. Our message from this podcast is simple: be proud of who you are and grateful for what you have. If you have a story to share, something that can inspire others, leave a comment or DM directly. We would love to feature you on The Experience Land. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.